clubhouse.
It's nature's way of proving that you're the father. So that you don't think the baby belongs to someone else. Then kill it. There's no such thing as a good man, Casey. All men are bad. But some of us try real hard to be good.
This is Sheila.
This is Stef.
Welcome back to the Yellowstone Podcast. Episode 2, Season 1. This is Kill the Messenger. How you doing, Stef?
Tell you, I've got a little bit of some allergies or something going on, so tonight I'll be using my deep and sexy voice.
Oh, it's like the obscene Caller of the Month Club.
Exactly.
Points if you can point out the movie. Yeah. I'm excited to be back talking about this.
Let's dive in. What did you think of this episode?
This was a busy episode. I mean, I thought like episode 1 was busy. This, even though this was, what, a half hour shorter, this had a lot going on. There's a lot to follow. Like, no Dan Jenkins.
Yeah.
I thought that was a little odd because, you know, he just had his whole river taken away from him. But yeah, this one I thought was crazy because, like, John and his reach.
I know.
To preserve his family. So I guess this is where we're seeing a lot of the legendary ruthlessness coming out of the Wild West.
You're right. It's a lot going on. I like how we follow each Dutton a little bit to see a little bit more about them.
Yeah, like a glimpse to them.
Yeah.
So I think it makes sense to start with Jamie. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, like his conversation with the governor and the attorney general, it really kicks off the events for this episode. Everything kind of swirls around this conversation that they have.
Yeah. He's like being like summoned to the principal's office though.
Yeah, it's like, you know, come on down and, you know, we need to talk to you. So, but first it's like, let's talk about your future. But first, the very unpleasant report from the medical examiner. So what did you think about what their findings were? I mean, it wasn't going to be a surprise.
No. I mean, yeah, it's accurate. I think, you know, it didn't sound like Casey really told the whole story. I know John told him to tell Jamie. Do you think he did tell Jamie the whole story?
It seem so from just how the dominoes fell in this episode. Yeah. It sounds like he said nothing, to be honest.
I know. But it's pretty, like, damning evidence. I mean, you can't really have any other explanation for like 5 shots all in a row and then a kill shot. So it's like he's pretty much pointing the finger directly at Casey on this one with his kill shots.
Yeah. So the question that I have is, does the governor want this just to be gotten rid of, or does she want it fixed, or does she want it gotten rid of?
I think she wanted it fixed. I think she was giving the Duttons a chance to get a handle on it because I think she's in their pocket, you know, and as we see later on, she's definitely in with John. So I think she's just giving them a chance to, like, sort of CYA, you know?
Yeah, see, I was thinking the other thing. I think she just wanted gotten rid of because she said it's already national news. She doesn't want this to, like, sink ships because this is the thing that takes people down and it sinks everyone.
That's true.
She prefaced the conversation with saying, let's talk about your future, but first. So I feel like she's getting some collateral against Jamie. Be like, you want this job? You got to make this go away. I just feel like that because she had the FBI involved. She had the Bureau of Indian Affairs involved. So I think, and the fact that the national attention was on Montana for not a good thing. I just think she was just like, let's sweep this so far under the rug that we can move a desk over it and never see it again. I was a little curious about because they mentioned 2 agents from BLM say that they saw a rider ride up to Lee, with Lee at the ranch. And we know that was Casey from the first episode, but they didn't have a chance to identify him. But I'm like, who's BLM? So it's the Bureau of Land Management, and they have their own law enforcement wing. So that's where these agents were. So I don't know if you caught that or what.
I mean, I remember that comment. This is a lot of law enforcement.
Like, yeah, there's a lot of different arms of law out there.
Very problematic.
For such a lawless place.
Well, yeah, I was going to say very problematic for jurisdiction issues. Like, good grief.
Yeah. And then the fact that this happened on an Indian reservation just very, very complicated. Yeah, so I was just getting the feeling that the governor really just wanted this to be gone, and she didn't care how it got gone as long as it never saw the light of day again. Then he goes and asks Beth for advice.
Yeah, why?
Why?
He do
Like, she was like so horrible to him from what we've seen already in episode 1. That's just like, how did he think that conversation was going to go?
I mean, did he just not have, I guess he just didn't have anybody else he thought he could ask, like, before bringing it to John? Because it seems like you don't want to come to John with anything unless you got it figured out.
Yeah, like you have a couple of solutions ready to go that you've tested. Don't
be asking him, like, what should I do?
I've got a problem, and that's the end of the sentence.
Yeah, not gonna go well.
You're right. But yeah, so, I mean, she just spews venom at him, and it was just, I mean, it was funny. It was mean, but it was funny what she says to him.
I know, she is so mean.
And he just says that he's celibate because he doesn't want to pass on the gene that made her.
That made me laugh. That's so funny. And then she's like, oh, solid burn. Like, she didn't say that, but that was like her sentiment. Like, oh, did you really try to hurt my feelings?
And then he just walks out giving her the finger. Just.
I love it.
So horrible.
I like how he puts the family picture back on the wall. Like.
But now it was weird. Did you think that it was weird that, like, Lee wasn't in the picture?
Yeah.
Like, why wasn't Lee there? This family is messed up.
I just don't get it. There's a lot of questions.
Thank God we have 3 seasons to, answer all these questions.
But let's start now. We need to, like, start making our trivia questions list, and that needs to be one of them. Who's missing from the family portrait?
Oh, yeah.
That's, like, a really good trivia question.
We'll be like, Lee, duh.
Like, we will know, but...
Do you know?
All the true fans will know.
I think that's a great idea. I think we can make it a drinking game.
Yes.
I feel like this is a bunkhouse game.
Yeah. Let's start making our list now. We're going to put it somewhere on.
We'll start doing Twitter questions.
Yes, let's do it. Okay.
I think so. Not for nothing. John wasn't there either. John and Lee were off branding cattle.
I guess. They were too busy for family pictures, right?
I guess so.
I mean, I'm sure it's happened before that a father has been traveling or something and missed the family picture.
Sad.
So after Jamie is, like, berated by Beth, he goes
again
to John, I guess, without a solution, really, but...
It's not a tested solution, I don't think.
I think...
Maybe that's what he was going to go talk to Beth about. He wanted to run that past her and see how crazy it sounded out loud.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and it's a family issue, too. Like, they just buried their brother, so I'm sure she wouldn't have had anything nice to say about that either, though. But he's, like, telling John, like, you know, you got to be careful. The report is out. It's in people's hands. It points directly to Casey. Like, they're going to exhume Lee's body, and you don't really have a choice about it. So, seems like John comes up with the solution of cremating Lee, which I'm a little confused as to why that is such a big problem. Is that a Catholic, like, religion type of moral dilemma?
For devout Catholics, cremation is not welcomed. It's not, like, widely done in the Catholic tradition. Like, I'm Catholic by my upbringing. About 13 years ago, my aunt who lived here in New York, she passed away, and she needed to be brought back to Ireland. It was going to cost, like, between $10,000 and $17,000 to send her home. She didn't have a lot of resources, so I said to my mom, I was like, we can't do this. Like, we can't ship her casket over there for the tune of $17,000, like, if it's the top end of that. We had her cremated, and I was like, I said to my cousins, I was like, in Ireland, I'm like, if anyone has a problem with it, it was my decision. Because especially in Ireland, where it's like, you know, Catholic religion is so much a part of, like, the daily life, it was just a very odd situation for them. They were like, well, what do we do? I'm like, you do all the same things, you just have an urn instead of a casket. So she's buried with her parents back home in Ireland, and it was added to the headstone. It's not a widely held tradition in the Catholic religion. Like, I want to be cremated because I'm just like, I don't want to be in the body. I don't want to be in the ground. No.
Right.
Like, John was having some real problems with it.
Though I don't mean this as harshly as it sounds, but the priest said he hasn't been there since he was like a kid, so
yeah,
it doesn't seem like he's a devout Catholic, so why would it bother him? Other than just, like, tradition, maybe.
Yeah, but he was also reading, like, the book of Revelation, like, when Beth walked in at one point, and he was asking her what are her thoughts about Judgment Day.
Yeah.
You know, that to me is like, very, very much someone who's mulling over his actions and just not in a moral way, but in a more like eternity sense.
Yeah.
So I felt bad for him, but at the same time, it's like, well, you have to kind of do it to protect your kid.
I think I just was struggling with why he's struggling, because he doesn't seem like the kind of person who has trouble with immoral decisions.
Yeah, and he says to the priest, he says, you know, that he's seen too much bad to think that God exists. Like, he doesn't believe in God because he's all that he's seen. So it just doesn't jive. But I
think he's just super sentimental when it comes to his family then.
And also, like, he probably just doesn't want to have to go through the act of having to dig up his son and having to rebury him. You know, like what we saw at the very end of this episode with his wife when he, you know, revisits her grave.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that the scene with John and Lee under the tree when he was picking out Lee's burial spot was heartbreaking. I was like, nope, dial that one back. This one replaced it.
Yeah. Like, nope.
Yeah, so maybe that's why he's having a hard time with it, because like he's also really not dealing well, I think, with the loss. He just had that one sort of emotional breakdown in the barn after the funeral, but other than that, like there's really no registering on his face of like what's going on.
This scene with the priest like went pretty deep. So it also has to do though with the friend, I guess, Carl at the auction or the rodeo, or talking about his son who saw what happened with Casey.
So this took me a couple of rewatches of the segment to kind of catch it all. So McCreary and Reynolds were the two BLM, the Bureau of Land Management agents that the governor talked about. Those were the two that saw Casey bringing Lee on the horse back to the Dutton Ranch. They didn't know who Casey was. They just said a rider. These two are now the ones that John wants to corner to change their story, make it more Dutton favorable. So he knows one of them. So he knows Reynolds, and so that's his dad. That's he sees at the rodeo. And then the other one, McCreary, is the one where he has Jamie find out where he goes to church.
Yeah.
And how convenient is it that, you know, Father Bob owes John
a huge favor.
Like, what kind of favor does this man owe?
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, what kind of favor could the priest owe John Dutton?
That felt really icky to me.
The priest sort of catering his message to that guy was kind of weird.
I don't know, the phrasing of it, Satan attacks the shepherd and the flock suffer. It was just like, there's going to be a bunch of people also sitting in that church going like, okay, like, this is a bit of a spin.
Yeah. It was a weird message too, because he was saying that the Bible says not to bear false witness. That's true. But they're talking about one of our neighbors is in trouble. And then he's like, the flock and the sheep and the shepherd. And I was like, are you referring to John Dutton as the shepherd of this flock?
Yeah, like that. I mean, that's a very exalted kind of a position to put a man in. Like,
if you're going with the biblical references here, there's not a man who should be referred to as the shepherd. So I was like,
I think that's my big problem with it too, is that it's very, for the priest to be doing that, it's very, very inappropriate.
I was like, what?
That's the ick factor for me right now. It's
yes,
just like,
I agree.
But, kudos to Father Bob. Message received by the younger Mr. McCreary.
Oh, gosh.
And then I can only imagine what the private conversation after the sermon was. But, I mean, this Aaron McCreary, is he going to go along with this if he's pious and God-fearing? Is he going to go along with the lie?
Well, I mean, it seems like if your priest tells you to, I feel like you would. I don't know.
This is not even Catholic. A moral gray area. This is just a moral, swamp.
A swamp. A bog.
A bog, yes, exactly.
I'm not Catholic, so I don't know the role of the priest.
But I mean, even just take out Catholic or just Christian.
You would lean to the advice of your pastor, your preacher, your priest, whoever. Yes, you would. If you go to them for advice and they're advising you to do something, I feel like you would do it based on in their congregation every Sunday. You're listening to them speak into your life. Like, they have that position in your life.
I have a very devil's advocate story. It's quick.
Okay.
My parents separated when I was 7 and have been divorced basically since then. So my mom, in the middle of the strife of, do we stay? Do we not do this? Whatever. She went to her priest, and like I said, we're Catholic, and the priest actually told her that no, you should just stay, and you know, it was for better or for worse, the vows you took, you know, till death do you part. She goes, yeah, but what if he kills me?
Oh my gosh.
No, he's an alcoholic, so it was just basically like, you know, the stress of it and like, you know, the damage that he's going to do to my kids and all the rest of it. So, but her priest was like, no, you should stick it out. Like, how bad could it really be? And she's like, no. So like 3 weeks later, she was like, yes, here's the separation order. So she did not follow the would-be shepherd of our community.
Oh gosh.
Because she was just like you can have him come live here for a little while. And
well,
you see
I
how
mean,
he
they
is.
are human. They're
True.
not perfect people. So yeah, I mean, I guess at some point
you do have to act for yourself too.
you have to account for yourself.
But I get the feeling that in this world of Montana, that this is going to definitely be something that is followed. We'll try the gentler approach with Father Bob, and then if that doesn't work, then there's stronger methods available.
Apparently.
Yeah. But the rodeo is a lot easier.
Yeah.
So, you know, he goes to the rodeo, sits down with a friend, and basically says, pony it up. I need your son to stop saying what he saw. He agree. I guess they've been friends for a while because it's just like, yep, sure, whatever you want. It just makes me wonder, like, why is everyone so willing to be like, yep, sure, no problem, John, got it. Like, I know he's a big landowner and things like that, and he's the livestock commissioner.
I was about to say that, and the livestock commissioner, which affects them and their livelihood.
Yeah, that's probably more what it has to do with, too.
But you're right, it was pretty easy to convince him to do that.
I did love their exchange, though, about bull riding as a way to, like, meet nurses and talk about, like, who's, like, want to talk to the first person who's ever thought, like, sitting on a bull was a good idea. And they're like, nah, the second one would be far more interesting. It's one of those few moments that we get, like, where everyone's laughing in this episode.
Was there any laughing in this episode?
There was a little bit. There was the little, you know, bull riding is a way to meet nurses. Uh-huh. And then when we get to Kate, well, yeah, I guess we can talk about Casey and Tate.
Oh, yeah, they're so cute.
Yes. Casey's having some trouble with the tree stump, blows it up, and they find a dinosaur.
That was awesome.
Like,
that was so funny.
That is such a Montana thing to have happen, too. Like, that's not going to happen around here.
No. That would be like FBI agents, like, at my house. I used to work in a building that had a consulate in it and an FBI, like, station. It was terrifying to work there. Because there would be, like, protests outside, and then there'd be, like, men with, like, guns in the lobby. I'm like, I don't like coming to work here. Like, can I go home for the day?
I'm legit. Like, why is there an M16 in my lobby?
Oh, and there was a radio station in that same building.
Oh, for God's sake.
I'm not even kidding. Like, I know it sounds made up, but I'm not. It's not. So there would be, like, rappers coming in with, like, their entourage, and I don't know who those people are. So we'd go up to the office, and people were like, oh, my God, did you see it was so-and-so? I'm like, who? Oh my God. So it was a very, like, lively place to work.
So wait, so it was an FBI office, the radio station, and what was the other thing?
And a consulate. I don't remember what country.
Obviously something that was causing strife, that there were protests.
This was, like, 15 years ago, probably.
Oh, 2005. That was, like, no bueno in the world. Like,
yes, exactly.
You know, Iraq was hot, Afghanistan was hot. So
you're right. It was 2005 because.
Oh, I did that math real quick in my head.
Yeah, you did.
We've been doing a lot of Common Core this last couple of days, so I'm good with my Make 10 and, you know, take away the counters.
That's funny. I don't know how we got on that subject, but anyways.
We were talking about dinosaurs, and like I said, they wouldn't be here, so.
Oh, no, we're talking about blowing things up. Okay, here we are. Back. Okay, back.
There we go. Back on track.
Here we are. We're back. Okay. So, yeah, blowing things up. That was pretty. Yeah, that was funny because Monica's in the shower.
Oh, that made me laugh out loud.
It did. Yeah.
I felt bad. Because that is such, like, a mom thing. It's like, you finally get, like, 5 minutes alone to take a shower. Like, everyone's stable. It's quiet. And sometimes having one kid is worse than having more. Yeah. Because they can get into trouble and there's nobody to, like, let you know about it. Yeah, so I felt bad. She got, like, her 5 minutes to take a shower, and then she has to run outside in a towel. And she's already, like, pissed off at Casey, and it's just...
It was pretty funny.
It was funny. That was about all the laughter that I could find in this whole episode.
I remember the first time I watched this episode, I thought, is that really a dinosaur or is that like some cow bones or something? But this time when I watched it, it does look like dinosaur bones. Which is way cooler than cow bones.
Yeah, definitely. And then I liked the moment that, John took advantage of the fact that the dinosaur was there to take some like time with Tate, and they were hypothesizing about like what took him down. Like a big sea shark. They were talking about like the change of the landscape. I thought that was cute.
He's like, how big is that?
Yeah, like I don't want to know what that is. But yeah, so it doesn't go good from here on out for me with Casey. It actually goes from bad to worse. He hasn't told Monica about what he's done.
Yeah.
She's figuring things out. But like, do you think that he'd be able to tell her the truth and keep her or stay together?
I
feel like that's the demon he's really grappling with. It's like,
yeah, he doesn't want to lose her.
Yeah. Is there a way that he tells her and she forgives him, or is this just no man's land?
I mean, yeah, this is like, you're not going to win with this one. Yeah, you're screwed. I know she wants him to tell her, but he's like, no, you don't. Trust me.
Yeah.
But I go back to what I said last time. Like, I just don't get why you would do that. Like, he was disarmed. Like, the threat is...
He was neutralized.
Neutralized. That's a good word. So it's like, why?
I talked to my brother because my brother was in the Navy because I was asking him a bunch of questions because I was like, all right, he has the Navy Cross and he's like an expert marksman. And my brother was like, Navy SEAL. Like, has to be.
Okay, but Tate asked him...
He says Army.
Army.
But an Army doesn't get the Navy Cross.
Yeah.
So
maybe...
So based on the medals that he had, it sounds like he's like a Navy SEAL. That leads us to he's calling up his former commander.
I know, he wants to go back. I get that he's feeling like he doesn't have anything to offer, but I mean,
this just feels like running away to me.
Yeah, I mean, it is. He's like, I can't stay and face like what I did. If she finds out, she's gonna leave me.
Right.
So.
And he could go to jail.
Oh, well, that too.
Well, he's a done. Is he really?
Yeah.
It didn't sit well with me. It also just didn't sound that he was back all that long, because there was this criteria that the commander was like, all right, you're out like a year. He's like, well, just under. He's like, oh, well, you fall under the deadline. So he's not back from war all that long.
Yeah.
And like, Tate's a little kid. So like, he's already missed a decent amount. And, you just feel bad for Tate because, like, he's really just the one who's suffering here because he's like, he starts to, he's asking questions and he's understanding what this means. So, again, this is another thing that just didn't sit right with me. The fact that he hadn't talked to Monica and he was already making the decision.
Oh, I would be so pissed.
You have a parental responsibility here. You can't just, like, not talk about leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be so pissed.
I mean, I'm glad she calls him out. I like that about her.
Yeah, like, she's reading between the lines and she sees what's going on.
I'm glad Tate said something, too. Like, why are you trying to leave again? I hope that he doesn't. I mean, this is was it the end of the episode when he is talking to Monica and he tries to tell her or sort of agrees to maybe tell her. She gives him, like, a pass. So is that... like a good thing, or is this gonna... I don't know, these secrets is like...
Yeah, so she says that, she's, if I give you the lie, will you stay?
Yeah.
I don't know, like, it's kind of like one of these things, it's like, I'll tell you a secret, but there's gonna be no repercussions.
Yeah.
But once you know the thing, you can't predict what your emotions are gonna be. I feel like Casey's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And that there's no way that Monica's going to be able to forgive him, especially if what's in the report gets out. I mean, the report's out there. Like, if the governor has a copy, somebody else has a copy. And they're going to know. They're going to see. All you need to see is the picture of her brother with his shoulder with the 5 bullet holes. That means that his arm cannot reach for a gun. Like, she wants to know. She wants to hear it from him, but I don't think she's going to be able to live with it.
Yeah.
At least not with him.
So I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing that she gives him a pass, or maybe she finds out later. We'll see.
So that leads me to my next question. So while Monica and Casey are driving, it sounds like he's about to say that he did it, and then the meth house blows up.
Like, what is that? That was really weird.
Like, talk about bad timing.
And scary and gross.
And the dog.
And the dog.
Why did they have to do the dog? Like, the guy burned to a crisp on the ground, dying.
It's pretty bad.
It was pretty bad, but the dog with no hind legs just, it killed me. My husband was like, oh, why? Why did they have to show that?
Why?
And I was like, yeah, it's just like the horse at the beginning of the first episode of episode 1, where he has to shoot the horse, and the horse is bleeding from the neck. I'm like, why? Humans can be charred to a crisp. He said, the guy said his family, and they were like, no family.
Like, why are we not disturbed?
Yeah, I'd like to say it's because we're kind-hearted, but we're like not feeling for the humans.
Casey kills the guy like out of mercy, I guess. Like he asked him to. So, and they stick around for the cops, and then Rainwater shows up, and I think it was interesting that Rainwater pointed out he didn't want to peg Casey like this. Like he wanted Casey for the
big
murder.
Thing. Yeah, the big hook. He didn't want it for a little
he's like, I don't want him for this, so we're gonna make this go away. So I kind of liked how he did that, just because it was like juicier plot point. Okay, so but then he tells the cop to like, switch slides with him, so that makes it look like the cop came up and shot the guy. Yeah,
and then Casey's the witness. I didn't pay close enough attention, so when Lee and Robert are having the gun battle and Casey steps in, does Casey use his own gun or does he use Lee's gun to shoot Robert? Because now does Ben, the police chief for the reservation, does he have the slide for the gun that killed Robert?
I think he ran up to Lee. Casey did, right?
Yeah. I thought Lee had a big rifle because he had a scope on it and he spotted Casey off yonder, and that's...
You're picking up the Texan words.
Well, between you and Caroline, it's bound to happen.
Yeah.
He's in a scope and he sees Casey off in the hills, but then Robert is shot with like a handgun because you can't do what he did with a rifle.
No.
You don't have that much control at such close range with a rifle. You don't have that much control with a rifle, full stop. So yeah, I just wasn't sure. So now I was wondering, does Ben now have the slide from the gun that killed Robert? And that would be like, is this like in Rainwater's plan? Is he like that much of a chess master to now be able to test that gun and be like, that one matches.
Interesting.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. So I wrote that down. I'm going to come back to
we'll
that.
We'll have to bookmark that and see if that comes out anywhere, because...
our predictions that we make, like, this is a really good one. You're really right on the money with that. Like, what is...
Sometimes I pay attention and sometimes be like, whoop!
Sometimes I miss it. This could be, like, a really interesting twist to the plot, because aside from that, it was, at first... Like, my reaction was like, wait, what? Like, why? Why did that just blow up? But you're right. Like, maybe this is twisting the web a little bit by them switching guns.
Monica, in the midst of... I think they were driving. It was right before the house exploded. That she's saying that all of these troubles have befallen Casey since he let his father back in his life. Mm-hmm. I kind of, like, sat there for a second. I was kind of like... she missing the root cause of this? Like, this is cause and effect, right? So Rainwater said, we're going to steal John Dutton's cattle because I want to show him who's boss kind of thing and reveal my hand. Then the cattle battle really happened from the effect of that, right?
Yeah.
So I think she's taking a very narrow approach to Casey's problems. Because also her grandfather also said, go home, we're not your people. And you'll be judged by your father's actions. So, like, I just feel like she's taking a very anti-Dutton approach here.
Clearly. She doesn't have any reason to really be on board with John Dutton. Maybe that's just how she sees it. Like, maybe she doesn't have the insight to see the full picture.
And maybe she doesn't know. That's the other thing. She may not know the full story because Lord knows Casey's not telling her anything. So it's probably true that her brother didn't tell her much either about, what they were doing. So
I really liked how Rainwater pointed out Casey's brand when they were doing the cleansing. And he said, in my experience, when you brand something on your body, you don't change sides. So yes. I thought that was a really interesting thing to say. Interesting observation, but also like foreshadowing or maybe too, like sort of pointing out why Casey ended up sort of on the Dutton side of things. Like maybe just naturally.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting that he involved Casey in a native ritual at all.
That's true. Maybe he has to. Like you have to cleanse everybody.
Maybe. Yeah, I just thought it was very interesting that it was a chance to kind of get to know him now that he'd gotten some more information about Casey from the report. So they got the preliminary copy of the medical examiner report. Through the conversation between Ben and Mo, he learns that Casey's also a war hero. So if he's putting two and two together, he might want to get some more information out of Casey by befriending him or just asking him some point-blank questions like the brand.
That's true.
And just what they were talking about, too, during the sweat. Very odd. Basically saying that all men are bad, but they try to be good. I don't know if I agree with that.
I mean, I kind of agree with that. And I don't mean men. I mean people.
Like mankind, yeah. Like men and women, yeah.
Like, well, and it's a biblical concept, too, that, like, we are born sinful, which is why you need salvation. So, like, he's right. Like, men and women are all sinful. All we do is just try to be good. And he's not wrong. But yeah, I did like how he pointed that out too. I was like, yeah. I was like, well, he's not wrong on that.
He's not wrong, exactly. But just back to the report. So now the fact that the tribe has a copy of this report, I just feel like, isn't this going to blow up in John's face? Like, you're doing this masterful cocooning of the information, right? Like, it's like we're talking about spider webs. Like, we're talking about like all the webs. Like, I feel like he's trying to draw a big cocoon around this one report and alter it for, you know, his purposes. But there's an actual copy out there of the direct opposite of what he's trying to say.
Does he know that the reservation has a copy?
The governor did share with Jamie that the tribe also got a copy of the autopsy report.
Okay, so John knows.
So John knows. John's not happy. He sends in his fixer.
He sends in Rip.
What a badass.
Yeah, like, where do you even start with it? Okay, first of all, and then whenever Jamie's telling John that the medical examiner got fired for smoking embalming fluid. And he's like, say what now? He did what? What'd you say?
Like, I'm sorry, in the list of drugs that I know about, that's not one of them.
Yeah, like, what the?
So apparently it has, like, the same effects that, like, PCP has.
Ugh.
But ew.
Right?
Just ew. As Rip is walking in on the medical examiner, we see him, he's got his cigarettes, and he's, like, dipping them in the embalming fluid, and they're just turning this disgusting color. I mean, like...
So gross.
Like, cigarettes are gross to start with, but the brand of cigarettes were Morley cigarettes. Morley. If you are a fan of the X-Files, you should have shouted, that's the smoking man's brand of cigarettes. So Morley cigarettes is a fictitious cigarette brand, but it looks like the Marlboro fictitious brand of cigarettes that gets used. I guess it's a way for them to sidestep having to use any, like, particular brand of cigarettes. But, like, when I saw Morley, I was like, that's the smoking man from the X-Files.
Funny. See, there's another trivia point.
There you go. I have certain uses, and this is one of them. Dumb, useless trivia. My brain is full of it.
You do know a lot of facts. I'm going to have to step up my game because Mike knows a lot of vocabulary. You know a lot of facts. Caroline's got all the jokes. I'm like,
that's right.
Geez. I'm going to have to step it up. Okay, so Rip, like, oh gosh. Okay. I think they're right in sort of framing this as a suicide. Like, that's really the only way to sort of not point the finger back at the Duttons. But also, that's a kind of a messy way to clean this up. Like, it just looks super suspicious, don't you think?
Yes.
Like, how is this not going to come back around to,
Absolutely. I mean, just the stuff that he put into the microwave. So he put, like, this metal kidney dish with all these, like, surgical instruments and a bottle of rubbing alcohol. Like, if you're a medical examiner, if you're a coroner, you have just sophisticated ways to do this. And this just looks so... The medical examiner says, he goes, this is going to look like arson. Where it's like, no, it's not. It's going to look like suicide.
No, it's not.
Like, suicide usually has a note somewhere. Just going to say. It's messy.
So messy, and really didn't accomplish the goal of, like, making this go away. I feel like it just looked way
worse. Yeah, it's like, well, let's just add another layer onto this onion.
So, I mean, my question is, do John and Rip sit down and, like, over coffee, like, come up with this plan, or is it literally like, don't ask, don't tell, I don't want to know?
I think it's don't ask, don't tell.
I do too, but I'm just joking. Like, seriously, I just don't know that John would be, like, okay with this plan. There seemed to be, like, no sounding board for Rip, I guess, on this one.
Yeah, and I don't see him going to Beth for sort of, you know, advice.
No, she'll bite.
Maybe he could get one of those wolves that they encountered in the national park to, you know, help him out a little. I felt like it was very amateurish.
Yeah.
For what they're trying to do. You know, taking the computer would be one thing, but just how the quote-unquote suicide, you know, went down. Like I said, if you're a coroner or medical examiner, you've got access to some lethal things.
I just felt like from sort of an investigation standpoint, the body you need is now cremated. What? The person you now need is blown up, like, very unrealistically.
Yeah, with, you know, medical instruments in a microwave.
And then the
like
other
a 10-year-old could have
witnesses,
done.
like, aren't talking. Like, it just...
Yeah, no, well, the other two witnesses have now changed their story. This looks messy. This looks messier than when we started this 45 minutes ago.
I agree.
You know.
I don't know that this was a very good solution.
We shall see. Somehow these Duttons, they're slimy and wriggly, and we like them, but they find their way out of the weirdest of circumstances. But I did feel bad for what Rip did to Jimmy. Like, I don't know. Like, are they going to make a cowboy out of this man, or is he just going to,
They're just going to
torture him to death?
Yes, it's going to be like worse than any college hazing.
The thought of being duct taped to a bucking horse, I gotta word that very carefully.
A bucking
to a
horse.
bucking horse for like hours on end, because like by the time they cut him off, the horse, like the sunlight had changed.
Oh yeah, the horse this was like all day.
Yeah. I mean, he got off the horse and puked, for God's sake.
Well, here's the thing too, is like 2 minutes before they taped Jimmy to the horse, it rolled over on John. So like
Yes.
you're gonna tape him to the horse, and then the horse is gonna roll over and kill him. Like,
And he
what?
can't get off.
Poor guy.
This doesn't seem like a very well thought out work plan for the day. 4 o'clock, wake up, eat breakfast. 5 o'clock, tape Jimmy to a horse.
Take Jimmy to a horse.
9 o'clock, go to the medical examiner's office and blow it up in like 15-year-old style. 7 p.m., chase wolves in the national park.
Yeah.
This is the day in the life of Rip going.
I feel like he would have to have some better plans in place for this stuff.
And then I have one final question for you. So we see that the bunkhouse now knows that Jimmy has the brand.
Yeah.
And it's very new and it's very gross. Lloyd steps up to defend Jimmy. So this is one of these moments where I was just like, oh, like you're taking pity on the newbie.
Yeah.
And I just really respect Lloyd a whole lot for stepping up to defend Jimmy and letting him, take the hot shower in the morning that he gets, thus revealing his own brand. So
Yeah.
did Lloyd not know that Jimmy was branded? What do you think?
I don't think so until that moment.
And so now we have Casey, we have Rip, we have Jimmy, and now Lloyd we know are all branded.
Yep.
The
So
other
that's
ranch
4.
hands have to be wondering, like,
What is going on?
Are we missing out? Are we not missing out? Because that looks painful. And, just the significance of it. So I have questions. Like, does John have the brand? I think we asked this before in the first episode. Like, does John have the brand? Did Lee have the brand?
I don't know. Oh, I don't know.
Does Beth have the brand? No, we know Beth doesn't have the
No,
brand.
she does not.
No, we know that. Just these questions, like the significance, especially for the ranch hands that are there, because their faces were like, whoa. Yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see how that plays out, especially since, like, Jimmy's, like, the low man on the totem pole. So he's the one that gets all the crap thrown at him. So
Oh, yeah.
Now that Lloyd knows, does this change the dynamic? Although Rip has the brand and Jimmy has the brand, and Rip just treated Jimmy like dirt.
Yeah, but I think Rip's just trying to, like, just make him a cowboy, I guess. So.
We'll forgive Rip. We'll forgive Rip for this. I got a soft spot for Jimmy. I feel bad for him.
Well, yeah, I do too. I don't feel like he's going to be walking too well.
No,
later.
I think he's going to need like a couple of days off between.
I don't think he's going to get a couple days off.
I don't think he's going to get a couple of days off.
Oh,
Between
God.
like the brand like searing in his chest, he had dynamite the last episode that he was dealing with.
Yeah.
He's had a rough first week. He really has.
Do not envy this poor guy. I loved, though, how when Beth was, like, outside the barn and Rip was like, I do not have time for your bullshit today, woman.
Yeah.
Like, it was so funny. I was like, absolutely.
Yeah, that was another laugh-worthy moment. All right, we got 3.
So, what did you think of their date?
Oh, in the national park with the wolves killing the elk. Not my idea of a very romantic spot, but, I guess a bottle of Southern Comfort will do that to just about anything. It makes me wonder about Beth's demons.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's got to be a lot of them. She does not seem stable.
No, definitely not. Yeah, the fact that, like, that she chases down the wolves, and the wolves, some of them kind of stood their ground for a second until Rip started, like, blazing through. It's like, we'll deal with the crazy one, but there's like, oh, there's a bigger one. Never mind.
There's a bigger one.
They smell what he did to the medical examiner's office. They're like, yeah, we're out of here.
Oh, yeah. Never mind.
So there were wolves, and then I just had a question about, like, the coyote. The coyote, did that signify anything to you?
The one in the middle of the road?
The one, yeah.
Yeah, it has to mean something, but I kind of didn't get it because Casey, it, like, stopped him in his track.
And his eyes were like, he was
like,
he was upset.
upset by it.
Yeah.
So, also, like, why did we have to see the aftermath of that? That's disgusting.
Yeah, that was just not necessary, but I'm sure,
These poor animals in this show.
Yeah, this episode in particular was rough on these poor animals. We'll have to see if there's significance about coyotes or something. And wolves. I just liked all the animal play in this one.
I don't know, girl. This was a crazy one.
Yeah.
I feel like super sloppy episode 2. Not in terms of production or writing. I just mean in terms of like the blood and the like suicide and all that.
Suicide
it's a little sloppy.
By microwave.
Suicide by microwave. Let's see what happens next week.
Yeah, well, Dan Jenkins has got to come back because his rivers run dry. And I'm sure he's not going to be happy.
He's mulling.
Yes, he's regrouping. He's probably calling up some lawyers, seeing what his options are. Yeah, so we'll be back real soon for episode 3.
Thanks for listening.
This is Sheila.
This is Stef.
And if you could remember to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, 5 stars would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening. This has been an original Pod Clubhouse production. Pod Clubhouse is a podcast network dedicated to encouraging collaboration among podcasters and friends to bring a fresh voice and diverse perspective on a wide array of content. Please visit and leave a comment for us at podclubhouse.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast feeds on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at Pod Clubhouse. Our DMs are always open, and we'd love to hear from you.